Morning, afternoon, or evening. It looks like you are opting to watch a video that comes in more than one part, probably because it was lengthy and we like to keep them kind of short so people don't have to sit too long. So this could be a two-parter, three-parter, or four-parter. I don't know which one you're looking at, but just wanted to let you know if you are on, say, part one and it has a part two, that part originally will come out on a date separate than part one. So just keep a lookout for the same title name where it says part two, part three, or part four, and you should find your way accordingly. I hope you enjoy, and I hope it helps clear up some sort of concept that someone was asking about. I'll see you later. Bye-bye now. One of the problems with malingering on some point is that it makes it hard to believe you with everything else, right? You know how it is. Once we get a reputation for being a liar, people just don't trust. It goes a long way. It's hard to get rid of that reputation. So one will probably be denied, in my opinion, if they're found to be malingering. And that's different again from hypochondria. I just want to point that out. Or yeah. I think it's different. It could also result if you were receiving benefits in the recovery of overpaid benefits to you, because now they're going to be potentially found to be overpaid because you had malingered and it was false and it was fraud and all that. And worst case scenario, of course, is all of those things I just mentioned. Plus, you could be referred for prosecution for a fraud investigation. I should say fraud investigation, which can result in a prosecution. You know, just a reminder to adjudicators too, they still have to comply with SSR 16-3 pay. So even if they see something that they think might be malingering, they're still required to avoid assessing and basing things on their own decision of whether the person is truthful or not, or has, you know, a truthful character, but they do still have to focus on the symptoms and the functional limitations that are in the medical records, as well as the ones in the function report. So they still have to do their job. They can't just cut bait the second they suspect you might be malingering, because who knows if they're right or wrong, right? So for you guys, I would always keep, you know, document everything about your symptoms, the severity of them, all your treatments, your functional limitations, your daily living activities. If you have a representative, they're going to be getting this stuff from you. But if you're pro se, you want to stay on top of it. You know, if you can also look at the objective evidence in your file. This is what your lawyer would do if you had one at various points in the whole claim. You know, what your symptom is, find in the file where the objective evidence is that supports that. So, and that's usually diagnostics, guys. So, you know, we're always saying, get updated diagnostics, get another MRI. I haven't had one in 18 months. This is why, because old MRI documents the old, and it can support those symptoms then. But it's going to be, the further you draw away from it, the further it may no longer do that. And in a lot of these situations, the objective findings will worsen over time. And you want that updated MRI to show how it's worsened. Particularly if you were denied on initial or recon, or had a previous case that you were denied on and you're stepping up and doing it again, you want to show that you're worse from the time that they said you weren't quite disabled enough yet. You need to show you're worse. So getting those ongoing things are very important. Remember to stay consistent between all of your claimant statements, your daily activities when you report those. That would be in a function report, or when you talk about them to your doctors. Remember that what you say to your doctors doesn't stay in Las Vegas. It gets in the record by and large. All that stuff, along with your treatment history, it's all got to kind of align. You know, there can't be any really egregious things that are like, wait a minute, someone's pulling a fast one here. When they don't align, determine what the reason is. You know you're honest. You know you're legit. You all are. You need to match up so you can have an explanation as to why that appears that way. It could be that when you were saying a 10 out of 10, and granted, you probably wouldn't try to the doctor. Maybe you were referring to yesterday, you know, and then it's calmed down enough to get to your appointment. That could happen with a flare-up. It was really bad yesterday when you made the appointment. It's slightly better now, enough to get there. But, you know, with too much activity, it might flare up again by the time you get home. Again, I mentioned this before, if your symptoms do vary, most of the people I know, I'd say most, there's bad days and there are worse days, or there are bad days and good days, or bad days and better days. So they might do a little bit more on a good day. A good day for them might be where they actually can go to the store and pick up 5 items that they needed. And on a bad day, they're just not doing it. They're putting it off, you know, that kind of thing. It might be the day you do some of that late housework versus the bad day where you're not going to do that late housework. I know we talked about this too, and Jonathan says it all the time, I think, as well. Avoid the all or nothing type of claims. Don't say something is constant when it's not 24/7 every minute of the day. Don't say things are always, unless it is always, and there are times when it is. Severe pain is probably not always. It probably flares up due to overactivity, being on your feet longer than you know you can, things of that nature. So those extreme hyperbolic words, they're fine in politics, but they're not fine when they're in your medical records. Okay. You know, the catastrophic limitations, I can't walk. Yet then later on in the function report, how far can you walk? 30 feet before needing to rest. So there's a difference. Can't walk, or you can. You can walk across a room or two. Makes a difference because sedentary jobs in an office might only need you to walk 30 feet. So, you know, and I know you're trying to prove you can't do that job, but don't do it on that. Do not do it that way. There are legitimate ways to prove you can't do that job, not by falsifying some of your answers. And these are all the things we check for because the way people explain things is so inaccurate. I think I've mentioned this before. There's a line of thought that the worst kind of evidence in, say, a criminal case or even in a liability case, which is civil, is that eyewitness testimony. So unreliable. And I was saying the other day, watch my cousin Vinny. I think I was saying it in live stream. Watch my cousin Vinny. And that gives you some pure example or two of an eyewitness who completely perceived the whole visual wrong. And it resulted in this entire criminal case. So my cousin Vinny, it is such a fun movie. Yeah. You know, and I think they say that it is one of the best ways that they can destroy a criminal case is by that eyewitness has to be on the stand, and it is very easy to pick them out. I do remember back in the days of my civil litigation days, I did insurance defense, which was the flip side of the personal injury claim plaintiff. So we represented the defendant, and I gained very early trial experience from doing that. I think I tried my first case 5 weeks after I passed the bar. But people would make in depositions and stuff, this would come out where, well, how, you know, when they were trying to thwart the person saying, I couldn't avoid hitting him. He ran the stop sign and I couldn't avoid hitting him. It was like right there, which could be a valid, truthful way to not be liable if it was so. And sometimes when someone would ask him, well, how long was the time between when you looked up and saw him and you two collided? It wasn't long at all. It was just a couple minutes. Well, think about that, guys. A couple minutes. You have a couple minutes. It was the way people use words. Obviously, it was only a couple seconds, right? But he says a couple minutes, and now it's on there. And that lawyer's using that probably in his closing, you know, to talk about how, you know, later on he said it was a couple minutes. So, you know, driving down that road, you see what's going on. You just assume it's going to move out of your way in time and it's stalled there and boom, you don't take the necessary precautions to hit your brakes and stop. Nope. You just go in, you know, it's how they get you on depositions if you're not well prepped. So those words have meaning. If you say a time frame, we always see this in the function report. How much can you lift? How much can you do this? How much can you do that? There are common sense things to consider when you answer those things for accuracy's sake and to not give a misleading answer. Sometimes the misleading answer is that you can do far more than you can because you didn't word it properly. And that's something your attorney should, if they're the type that will work with you on the function report and explain these things. If not, you're kind of hung out to dry, but alrighty. Yeah. So you got to manage any malingering risk. You have to be proactive about it. You know, you're not a malingerer. Get all your ducks in a row. Explain it, show it. It's very, very doable. Like I said, we haven't seen malingerers. However, we constantly see inconsistencies in the records and we just get the facts and we make sure that they are going to be harmless. Gather your explanations, keep them on hand. You can even put them in a 795 form and submit it to an adjudicator on initial and recon if you see something very untoward there, and explain that that's not what it appears to be because of this other reason. All right. I think that's it, guys. Malingering. I hope if you have any questions, just let me know. It's the things what it is, what you can do about it, how you can make sure it does not become an issue in your case. All right. You guys have a great day now. I'll talk to you later. Bye. That part is over. If you're looking for the following part, if there is one, or a preceding part to the same video that was longer, just look under the channel for the same title video. They are named the same and they just have part 1, part 2, part 3, or whatever part it is. So feel free to take a look, see, and complete the video. Take care.